Is that in frame? All right, hey everybody. I am Joey Haber from the Flying Tortoise Academy in Portland, Oregon. This is the third class in my sequence of courses based on being isolated from coronavirus. See, first class we did hip mobility, second class we did stance and single leg. I got some comments from those videos. There were some people who liked the audiobook, some who didn't. Audiobook stays. I also got a question on Reddit about the knee angle in the hip opening exercises, and that's a really good question. It's one that requires a fair bit of explanation and doesn't really lend itself to the video format I'm working with right now. So in response to that, I'll be releasing short, like 5-6 minute videos through my webpage at flyingtortoise.org. They'll be donation based, free if you can't afford them, but if you want to drop me a buck or two, that always helps during these times. And any question you ask me online, I will try to make a small video about and place there. We should have some pretty in-depth footage about the hip opening exercises, knee angles, and coiling over the next few weeks. So again, be sure to check out flyingtortoise.org for all that good stuff. And yeah, I will keep posting daily as long as my kids allow and the virus, makes it a good thing to do. Thank you all so much and have a great day. Good morning and happy Thursday, everybody. Today, for our third class, we're going to review some of the material from the previous classes. We're also going to add in a Cheng BaGuaZhang shoulder opening exercises, a bit of ocean turtle qigong, and some TiTui, some kicking exercises just to spice things up a bit. Hope you're all being safe and doing well. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, please post them in the appropriate sections. Let's get started.
And that's where I am now, wondering what the hell happened. After all that work and getting blown up, I'm exhausted. Tomorrow I'll have to do 1 million equipment checks and try to figure out what exploded, but for now I just want to sleep. I'm in the rover again tonight. Even with the hydrogen gone, I'm reluctant to hang out in a hab that has a history of exploding for no reason. Plus, I can't be sure there isn't a leak. This time I brought a proper meal and something to listen to that isn't disco. Log entry. Sol 41. I spent the day running full diagnostics on every system in the hab. It was incredibly boring, but my survival depends on these machines, so it had to be done. I can't just assume an explosion did no long-term damage. I did the most critical tests first. Number 1 was the integrity of the hab canvas. I felt pretty confident it was in good shape because I'd spent a few hours asleep in the rover before returning to the hab, and the pressure was still good. The computer reported no change in pressure over that time, other than a minor fluctuation based on temperature. Then I checked the oxygenator. If that stops working and I can't fix it, I'm a dead man. No problems. Then the atmospheric regulator. Again, no problem. Heating unit, primary battery array, O2 and N2 storage tanks, water reclaimer, all 3 airlocks, lighting systems, main computer. On and on I went, feeling better and better as each system proved to be in perfect working order. Gotta hand it to NASA. They don't screw around when making this stuff. Then came the critical part, checking the dirt. I took a few samples from all over the hab. Remember, it's all dirt flooring now, and made slides. With shaking hands, I put a slide into the microscope and brought the image up on screen. There they were.
Hips back.
Healthy, active
Hips
bacteria
forward.
doing their thing. Looks like I won't be starving to death on Sol 400 after all. I plopped down in a chair and let my breathing return to normal. Then I set about cleaning up the mess, and I had a lot of time to think about what had happened. So what happened? Well, I have a theory. According to the main computer, during the blast, the internal pressure spiked to 1.4 atmospheres, and the temperature rose to 15 degrees Celsius in under a second. But the pressure quickly subsided back to 1 atmosphere. This would make sense if the atmospheric regulator were on, but I'd cut power to it. The temperature remained at 15 degrees Celsius for some time afterward, so any heat expansion should still have been present, but the pressure dropped down again. So where did that extra pressure go? Raising the temperature and keeping the same number of atoms inside should permanently raise the pressure.
Back straight.
But it didn't. I quickly realized the answer. The hydrogen, the only available thing to burn, combined with oxygen, hence combustion, and became water. Water is 1,000 times as dense as a gas, so the heat added to the pressure, and the transformation of hydrogen and oxygen into water brought it back down again. The million-dollar question is, Where the hell did the oxygen come from? The whole plan was to limit oxygen and keep an explosion from happening, and it was working for quite a while before blowing up. I think I have my answer, and it comes down to me brain farting.
Standing up.
Remember when I decided not to wear a spacesuit? That decision almost killed me.
Swoop.
The medical O2 tank mixes pure oxygen with surrounding air, then feeds it to you through a mask. The mask stays on your face with a little rubber band that goes around the back of your neck, not an airtight seal. I know what you're thinking. The mask leaked oxygen, but no. I was breathing the oxygen. When I was inhaling, I made a nearly airtight seal with the mask by sucking it to my face. The problem was exhaling. Do you know how much oxygen you absorb out of the air when you take a normal breath? I don't either, but it's not 100%. Every time I exhaled, I added more oxygen to the system. It just didn't occur to me, but it should have. If your lungs grabbed up all the oxygen, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation wouldn't work. I'm such a dumbass for not thinking of it, and my dumbassery almost got me killed. I'm really going to have to be more careful. It's a good thing I burned off most of the hydrogen before the explosion, otherwise that would have been the end. As it is, the explosion wasn't strong enough to pop the hab, though it was strong enough to almost blast my eardrums in. This all started with me noticing a 60-liter shortfall in water production. Between deliberate burn-off and a bit of unexpected explosion, I'm back on track. The water reclaimer did its job last night and pulled 50 liters of the newly created water out of the air. It's storing it in Lewis's spacesuit, which I'll call the cistern from now on because it sounds cooler. The other 10 liters of water was directly absorbed by the dry soil. Lots of physical labor today. I've earned a full meal. And to celebrate my first night back in the hab, I'll kick back and watch some shitty 20th century TV courtesy of Commander Lewis. The Dukes of Hazzard, eh? Let's give it a whirl. Log entry. Sol 42. I slept in late today. I deserved it. After 4 nights of awful sleep in the rover, my bunk felt like the softest, most profoundly beautiful feather bed ever made. Eventually, I dragged my ass out of bed and finished some post-explosion cleanup. I moved the potato plants back in today, and just in time, too. They're sprouting. They look healthy and happy. This isn't chemistry, medicine, bacteriology, nutrition analysis, explosion dynamics, or any other shit I've been doing lately. This is botany. I'm sure I can at least grow some plants without screwing up. Right? You know what really sucks? I've only made 130 liters of water. I have another 470 liters to go. You'd think after almost killing myself twice, I'd be able to stop screwing around with hydrazine. But nope. I'll be reducing hydrazine and burning hydrogen in the hab every 10 hours for another 10 days. I'll do a better job of it from now on. Instead of counting on a clean reaction, I'll do frequent hydrogen cleanings with a small flame. It'll burn off gradually instead of building up to kill mark levels. I'll have a lot of dead time. 10 hours for each tank of CO2 to finish filling. It only takes 20 minutes to reduce the hydrazine and burn the hydrogen. I'll spend the rest of the time watching TV. And seriously, it's clear that General Lee can outrun a police cruiser. Why doesn't Roscoe just go to the Duke farm and arrest them when they're not in the car? Chapter 6. Venkat Kapoor returned to his office, dropped his briefcase on the floor, and collapsed into his leather chair. He took a moment to look out the windows. His office in Building 1 afforded him a commanding view of the large park in the center of the Johnson Space Center complex. Beyond that, dozens of scattered buildings dominated the view all the way to Mud Lake in the distance. Glancing at his computer screen, he noted 47 unread emails urgently demanding his attention. They could wait. Today had been a sad day. Today was the memorial service for Mark Watney. The president had given a speech praising Watney's bravery and sacrifice and the quick actions of Commander Lewis in getting everyone else to safety. Commander Lewis and the surviving crew via long-range communication from Hermes gave eulogies for their departed comrade from deep space. They had another 10 months of travel yet to endure. The administrator had given a speech as well, reminding everyone that spaceflight is incredibly dangerous and that we will not back down in the face of adversity. They'd asked Venkat if he was willing to make a speech. He declined. What was the point? Botany was dead. Nice words from the director of Mars operations wouldn't bring him back. "You okay, Venk?" came a familiar voice from the doorway. Venkit swiveled around. "Guess so," he said. Teddy Sanders swept a rogue thread off his otherwise immaculate blazer.
Check that for a moment.
"You could have given a speech." "I didn't want to."
Hey, just like
You know
basketball
that.
classes.
Yeah, I
Right
know.
hip.
I didn't want
External
to either,
rotation.
but I'm the administrator of NASA. It's kind of expected. "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah, I'll be fine." "Good," Teddy said, adjusting his cufflinks. "Let's get back to work then." "Sure," Venkit shrugged. "Let's start with you authorizing
Grab
my
the feet,
satellite
draw the
time."
belly, raise the head neck.
Teddy leaned against the wall with a sigh. "This again." "Yes," Venkit said. "This again. What is the problem?" "Okay, run me through it. What exactly are you after?"
Left hip, external rotation.
Venkit leaned forward. "Ares 3 was a failure, but we can salvage something from it. We're funded for 5 Ares
Feet
missions.
grab,
I
belly
think we
pulls,
can
neck
get Congress
raises.
to fund a 6th. I don't know, Venk. It's simple, Teddy," Venkit pressed on. "The evac after 6 souls. There's almost an entire mission's worth of supplies up there. It would only cost a fraction of a normal mission. It normally takes 14 pre-supply probes to prep a site. We might be able to send what's
Figure
missing
eight.
in 3, maybe 2. Venk, the site got hit by a 175 kilometers per hour sandstorm. It'll be in really bad shape. That's why I want imagery,"
Grab the feet,
Venkit said.
draw the belly,
"I
raise the
just
head neck.
need a couple of shots of the site. We could learn a lot." "Like what? You think we'd send people to Mars without being sure everything was in perfect working order?" "Everything doesn't have to be perfect," Venkit said quickly. "Whatever's broken, we'd send replacements for. How will we know from imagery what's broken? It's just a first step. They evac because the wind was a threat to the MAV, but the HAB can withstand a lot more punishment. It might still be in one piece, and it'll be really obvious. If it popped, it'd completely blow out and collapse. If it's still standing, then everything inside will be fine. And the rovers are solid. They can take any sandstorm Mars has to offer. Just let me take a look, Teddy. That's all I want." Teddy paced to the windows and stared out at the vast expanse of buildings. "You're not the only guy who wants satellite time, you know. We have Ares 4 supply missions coming up. We need to concentrate on Schiaparelli Crater."
All right, right
"I don't
hip.
get it, Teddy.
Slightly wider
What's the
stance,
problem here?"
inward
Venkit
rotation.
asked. "I'm talking about securing us another mission. We have 12 satellites in orbit around Mars. I'm sure you can spare 1 or 2 for a couple of hours. I can give you the windows for each one when they'll be at the right angle for Ares 3 shots. It's not
Grab the
about
feet,
satellite
draw the belly,
time,
raise the
Venk,"
neck.
Teddy interrupted. Venkit froze. But what? Teddy turned to face him. "We're a public domain organization. There's no such thing as secret or secure information here. So, any imagery we
Left hip,
take goes directly
inward
to the
rotation.
public. Again, so? Mark Watney's body will be within 20 meters of the HAB, maybe partially buried in sand, but still very visible, and with a comm antenna sticking out of his chest. Any images we take will show that." Venkit stared, then glared. "This is why you denied my imagery requests for 2 months? Venk, come on. Really, Teddy?" he said. "You're afraid of a PR problem?" "The media's obsession with Watney's death is finally starting to taper off," Teddy said evenly. "It's been bad press after bad press for 2 months. Today's memorial gives people closure, and the media
Figure
can
eight.
move on to some other story.
Grab the
The
feet,
last
draw
thing
the belly
we
to the
want is
spine,
to dredge
head
everything
neck
back
raises.
up. So what do we do then? He's not going to decompose. He'll be there forever." "Not forever," Teddy said. "Within a year, he'll be covered in sand from normal weather activity." "A year?" Venkit said, rising to his feet. "That's ludicrous. We can't wait a year for this. Why not? Ares 4 won't even launch for another 5 years. Plenty of time." Venkit took a deep breath and thought for a moment. "Okay, consider this. Sympathy for Watney's family is really high. Ares 6 could bring the body back. We don't say that's the purpose of the mission, but we make it clear that would be part of it. If we framed it that way, we'd get more support in Congress. But not if we wait a year. In a year, people won't care anymore. Teddy rubbed his chin. Mindy Park stared at the ceiling. She had little else to do. The 3 a.m. shift was pretty dull. Only a constant stream of coffee kept her awake. Monitoring the status of satellites around Mars had sounded like an exciting proposition when she took the transfer, but the satellites tended to take care of themselves. Her job turned out to be sending emails as imagery became available. Master's degree in mechanical engineering, she muttered.
Good.
And I'm working in an all-night photo booth.
Back to that figure 8 external rotation.
She sipped her coffee.
As the
flicker
arm
on her
raises,
screen announced that another
the
set
hip
of images
initiates,
was
the
ready
arm
for
pulls
dispatch.
over the hip,
She checked
hip
the name
1,
on the work order.
arm 2.
Venkat Kapoor. She posted the data directly to internal servers and composed an email to Dr. Kapoor. As she entered the latitude and longitude of the image, she recognized the numbers. 31.2 degrees north, 28.5 degrees west. Acidalia planitia? Aries 3? Out of curiosity, she brought up the first of the 17 images. As she'd suspected, it was the Aries 3 site. She'd heard they were going to image it. Slightly ashamed of herself, she scoured the image for any sign of Mark Watney's dead body. After a minute of fruitless searching, she was simultaneously relieved and disappointed.
Good.
She moved on to perusing the rest of the image.
Little finger side out, like the last couple classes.
Kapoor would be happy
Adding
to see
in that
that.
internal rotation.
She brought the coffee
Slice.
mug to her lips, then froze. She mumbled to herself.
Hip rolls first, arm second.
She brought up the NASA intranet and navigated through the site to the specifics of the Ares missions. After some quick research, she picked up her phone. Hey, this is Mindy Park at SATCON. I need the mission logs for Ares 3. Where can I get them? Okay. Thanks. After some more time on the intranet, she leaned back in her seat. She no longer needed the coffee to keep awake. Picking up the phone again, she said, Hello, security? This is Mindy Park in SATCON. I need the emergency contact number for Dr. Venkat Kapoor. Yes, it's an emergency. Mindy fidgeted in her seat as Venkat trudged in. To have the director of Mars operations visiting SATCON was unusual. Seeing him in jeans and a t-shirt was even more unusual. You Mindy Park? He asked with the scowl of a man operating on 2 hours of sleep. Yes, she quavered. Sorry to drag you in. I'm assuming you had a good reason. So? She said, looking down. Well, the imagery you ordered. Come here and look. He pulled another chair to her station and seated himself. Is this about what he's body?
Just like last two classes. Palm,
no,
palm, belly,
she said.
palm,
well,
belly draws to back, feet grab, head
she
neck
winced
raised,
at her own awkwardness and
chest
pointed to the screen.
concave, back convex.
Venkat inspected the image. Looks like the hab's in one piece. That's good news. Solar array looks good. The rovers are okay too. Main dish isn't around. No surprise there. What's the big emergency? She said, touching her finger to the screen. That. Venkat leaned in and looked closer. Just below the hab, beside the rovers, 2 white circles sat in the sand. Looks like hab canvas. Maybe the hab didn't do well after all. I guess pieces got torn off and, she interrupted. They looked like rover pop tents. Venkat looked again. Probably right. How'd they get set up? Mindy asked. Venkat shrugged. Commander Lewis probably ordered them deployed during the evac. Not a bad idea. Have the emergency shelters ready in case the MAV didn't work and the hab breached. Yeah, Mindy said, opening a document on her computer. This is the entire mission log for Sols 1 through 6, from MDV touchdown to MAV emergency liftoff. Okay, and? I read through it several times. They never threw out the pop tents. Her voice cracked at the last word. Well, Venkit said, furrowing his brow. They obviously did, but it didn't make it into the log. They activated 2 emergency pop tents and never told anyone? That doesn't make a lot of sense, no. Maybe the storm messed with the rovers and the tents auto-deployed. So after auto-deploying, they detached themselves from the rovers and lined up next to each other 20 meters away? Venkit looked back to the image. Well, obviously, they activated somehow. Why are the solar cells clean? Mindy said, fighting back tears. There was a huge sandstorm. Why isn't there sand all over them? A good wind could have done it, Venkit said, unsure.
Rolling forward,
Did I mention
same
I
thing.
never found
Belly
Watney's
rise,
body?
feet
She
grab,
said
head neck
sniffling.
raise, concave chest.
Venkit's eyes widened as he stared at the
Hand,
picture.
belly, palm, palm,
He said
palm, palm,
quietly.
belly. We're going gradually
God.
rounding that out.
Mindy put her hands over her face and sobbed quietly. Fuck, Annie Montrose said. You have got to be fucking kidding me. Teddy glared across his immaculate mahogany desk at his director of media relations. Not helping, Annie. He turned to his director of Mars operations. How sure are we of this? Nearly 100%, Venkit said. Fuck, Annie said. Teddy moved a folder on his desk slightly to the right so it would line up with his mousepad. It is what it is. We have to deal with it. Do you have any idea the magnitude of shitstorm this is gonna be? She retorted. You don't have to face those damn reporters every day. I do. One thing at a time, Teddy said. Venk, what makes you sure he's alive? For starters, no body, Venkit explained. Also, the pop tents are set up, and the solar cells are clean. You can thank Mindy Park and SATCON for noticing all that, by the way. But, Venkit continued, his body could have been buried in the Sol 6 storm. The pop tents might have auto-deployed, and wind could have blown them around. A 30 kilometers per hour windstorm sometime later would have been strong enough to clean the solar cells, but not strong enough to carry sand. It's not likely,
in that
but it's
inward
possible.
figure 8, internal
So I
rotation.
spent the last few hours checking everything I could. Commander Lewis had 2 outings in Rover 2. The second was on Sol 5. According to the logs, after returning, she plugged it into the hab for recharging. It wasn't used again, and 13 hours later, they evac'd. He slid a picture across the desk to Teddy. That's one of the images from last night. As you can see, Rover 2 is facing away from the hab. The charging port is in the nose, and the cable isn't long enough to reach. Teddy absently rotated the picture to be parallel with the edges of his desk. She must have parked it facing the hab, or she wouldn't have been able to plug it in, he said. It's been moved since Sol 5. Yeah, Venkit said, sliding another picture to Teddy.
Same thing.
But here's the real evidence. In the lower right of the image, you can see the MDV. It's been taken apart. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have done that without telling us. And the clincher is on the right of the image, Venkit pointed. The landing struts of the MAV. Looks like the fuel plant has been completely removed, with considerable damage to the struts in the process. There's just no way that could have happened before liftoff. It would have endangered the MAV way too much for Lewis to allow it. Hey, Annie said, why not talk to Lewis? Let's go to Catcom and ask her directly. Rather than answer, Venkit looked to Teddy knowingly. Because, Teddy said, if Watney really is alive, we don't want the Ares 3 crew to know. What? Annie said. How can you not tell them? They have another 10 months on their trip home, Teddy explained. Space travel is dangerous. They need to be alert and undistracted. They're sad that they lost a crewmate, but they'd be devastated if they found out they'd abandoned him alive. Annie looked at Venkit. You're on board with this?
Okay.
It's a no-brainer, Venkit said. Let them deal with that emotional trauma when they're not flying a spaceship around. This'll be the most talked about event since Apollo 11, Annie said. How will you keep it from them? Teddy shrugged. Easy. We control all communication with them. Fuck, Annie said, opening her laptop. When do you want to go public? What's your take? He asked. Annie said. We can hold the pics for 24 hours before we're required to release them. We'll need to send out a statement along with them. We don't want people working it out on their own. We'd look like assholes. Okay, Teddy agreed. Put together a statement. That'll be fun, she grumbled. Where do we go from here? Teddy asked Venkat. Step 1 is communication, Venkat said. From the pics, it's clear the comm array is ruined. We need another array to talk. Once we can talk, we can assess and make plans.
Change direction?
All right, Teddy said. Get on it. Take anyone you want from any department. Use as much overtime as you want. Find a way to talk to him. That's your only job right now. Got it. Annie, make sure nobody gets wind of this till we announce. Right, Annie said. Who else knows? Just the 3 of us and Mindy Park and Satcom, Venkat said. I'll have a word with her, Annie said. Teddy stood and opened his cell phone. I'm going to Chicago. I'll be back tomorrow. Why? Annie asked. That's where Watney's parents live, Teddy said. I owe them a personal explanation before it breaks on the news. They'll be happy to hear their son's alive, Annie said. Yes, he's alive, Teddy said. But if my math is right, he's doomed to starve to death before we can possibly help him. I'm not looking forward to the conversation. Fuck, Annie said thoughtfully.
TiTui. Start at the hips.
Nothing. Nothing at all, Venkat groaned. Are you kidding me? You had 20 experts working for 12 hours on this. We have a multi-billion-dollar communications network. You can't figure out any way to talk to him? The 2 men in Venkat's office fidgeted in their chairs. He's got no radio, said Chuck. Well, actually, said Morris, he's got a radio, but he doesn't have a dish. Thing is, Chuck continued, without the dish, a signal would have to be really strong, like melting the pigeon strong, Morris supplied. For him to get it, Chuck finished. We considered Martian satellites, Morris said. They're way closer, but the math doesn't work out. Even Super Surveyor 3, which has the strongest transmitter, would need to be 14 times more powerful. 17 times, Chuck said. 14 times, Morris asserted. No, it's 17. You forgot the amperage minimum for the heaters to keep the... Guys, Venkat interrupted. I get the idea.
Next.
Sorry. Sorry if I'm grumpy, Venkat said. I got like 2 hours sleep last night. No problem, Morris said. Totally understandable, Chuck said. Okay, Venkat said. Explain to me how a single windstorm removed our ability to talk to Ares 3. Failure of imagination, Chuck said. Totally didn't see it coming, Morris agreed. How many backup communication systems does an Ares mission have? Venkat asked. 4, Chuck said. 3, Morris said. No, it's 4, Chuck corrected. He said backup systems, Morris insisted. That means not including the primary system. Oh, right, 3. So 4 systems total then, Venkat said. Explain how we lost all 4. Well, Chuck said, the primary ran through the big satellite dish. It blew away in the storm. The rest of the backups were in the MAV. Yup, Morris agreed. The MAV is like a communicating machine. It can talk to Earth, Hermes, even satellites around Mars if it has to. And it has 3 independent systems to make sure nothing short of a meteor strike can stop communication. Problem is, Chuck said, Commander Lewis and the rest of them took the MAV when they left. So 4 independent communication systems became 1. And that 1 broke, Morris finished. Venkat pinched the bridge of his nose. How could we overlook this? Chuck shrugged. Never occurred to us. We never thought someone would be on Mars without an MAV. I mean, come on, Morris said. What are the odds? Chuck turned to him. 1 in 3, based on empirical data. That's pretty bad if you think about it. This was going to be rough, and Annie knew it. Not only did she have to deliver the biggest mea culpa in NASA's history, every second of it would be remembered forever. Every movement of her arms, intonation of her voice, and expression on her face would be seen by millions of people over and over again. Not just in the immediate press cycle, but for decades to come.
Big circle.
Every documentary made about Watney's situation would have this clip. She was confident that none of that concern showed on her face as she took to the podium. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, she said to the assembled reporters. We have an important announcement to make. If you could all take your seats. What's this about, Annie? Brian Hess from NBC asked. Something happened with Hermes? Please take your seats, Annie repeated. The reporters milled about and argued over seats for a brief time, then finally settled down. This is a short but very important announcement, Annie said. I won't be taking any questions at this time, but we will have a full press conference with Q&A in about an hour. We have recently reviewed satellite imagery from Mars and have confirmed that astronaut Mark Watney is currently still alive. After one full second of utter silence, the room exploded with noise. A week after the stunning announcement, it was still the top story on every news network in the world. I'm getting sick of daily press conferences, Venkat whispered to Annie. I'm getting sick of hourly press conferences, Annie whispered back. The two stood with countless other NASA managers and executives bunched up on the small stage in the press room. They faced a pit of hungry reporters, all desperate for any scrap of new information. Sorry I'm late, Teddy said, entering from the side door. He pulled some flashcards from his pocket, squared them in his hands, then cleared his throat. In the 9 days since announcing Mark Watney's survival, we've received a massive show of support from all sectors. We're using this shamelessly, every way we can. A small chuckle cascaded through the room. Yesterday, at our request, the entire SETI network focused on Mars, just in case Watney was sending a weak radio signal. Turns out he wasn't, but it shows the level of commitment everyone has toward helping us. The public is engaged, and we will do our best to keep everyone informed. I've recently learned CNN will be dedicating a half-hour segment every weekday to reporting on just this issue. We will assign several members of our media relations team to that program, so the public can get the latest information as fast as possible. We have adjusted the orbits of 3 satellites to get more view time on the Ares 3 site and hope to catch an image of Mark outside soon. If we can see him outside, we will be able to draw conclusions on his physical health based on stance and activities. The questions are many. How long can he last? How much food does he have? Can Ares 4 rescue him? How will we talk to him?
Opening the back of the leg.
The answers to these questions are not what we want to hear. I can't promise we'll succeed in rescuing him, but I can promise this. The entire focus of NASA will be to bring Mark Watney home. This will be our overriding and singular obsession until he is either back on Earth or confirmed dead on Mars. Nice speech, Venkat said as he entered Teddy's office. Meant every word of it, Teddy said. Oh, I know. What can I do for you, Venk? I've got an idea. Well, JPL has an idea. I'm the messenger. I like ideas, Teddy said, gesturing to a seat. Venkat sat down. We can rescue him with Ares 4. It's very risky. We ran the idea by the Ares 4 crew. Not only are they willing to do it, but now they're really pushing hard for it. Naturally, Teddy said. Astronauts are inherently insane. And really noble. What's the idea? Well, Venkat began. It's in the rough stages, but JPL thinks the MDV can be misused to save him. Ares 4 hasn't even launched yet. Why misuse an MDV? Why not make something better? We don't have time to make a custom craft. Actually, he can't even survive till Ares 4 gets there, but that's a different problem. So tell me about the MDV. JPL strips it down, loses some weight, and adds some fuel tanks. Ares 4's crew lands at the Ares 3 site very efficiently. Then, with a full burn, and I mean a full burn, they can lift off again. It can't get back to orbit, but it can go to the Ares 4 site on a lateral trajectory that's, well, really scary. Then they have an MAV. How are they losing weight? Teddy asked. Don't they already have it as light as it can be? By removing safety and emergency equipment. Wonderful, Teddy said. So we'd be risking the lives of 6 more people. Yep, Venkat said. It would be safer to leave the Ares 4 crew in Hermes and only send the pilot down with the MDV, but that would mean giving up the mission, and they'd rather risk death. They're astronauts, Teddy said. They're astronauts, Venkat confirmed. Well, that's a ludicrous idea, and I'll never okay it.
For a second?
We'll work on it some more, Venkat said. Tried to make it safer. Do that. Any idea how to keep him alive for
TiTui.
4 years? Nope.
Press.
Work on that
Raise
too.
the head neck.
Will
Push
do.
the heel
Make
into
it
the
safe.
ground.
Teddy swiveled his chair and looked out the window to the sky beyond. Night was edging in. What must it be like, he pondered. He's stuck out there. He thinks he's totally alone and that we all gave up on him. What kind of effect does that have on a man's psychology? He turned back to Venkat. I wonder what he's thinking right now. Log entry. Sol 61. How come Aquaman can control whales? They're mammals. Makes no sense. Chapter 7. Log entry.
All right.
Sol 63.
Out and kick.
I finished making water some time ago. I'm no longer in danger of blowing myself up. The potatoes are growing nicely. Nothing has conspired to kill me in weeks. And 70s TV keeps me disturbingly more entertained than it should. Things are stable here on Mars. It's time to start thinking long term. Even if I find a way to tell NASA I'm alive, there's no guarantee they'll be able to save me. I need to be proactive. I need to figure out how to get to Ares 4. Won't be easy. Ares 4 will be landing at the Schiaparelli crater, 3,200 kilometers away. In fact, their MAV is already there. I know because I watched Martinez land it. It takes 18 months for the MAV to make its fuel, so it's the first thing NASA sends along. Sending it 48 months early gives it plenty of extra time in case fuel reactions go slower than expected. But much more importantly, it means a precision soft landing can be done remotely by a pilot in orbit. Direct remote operation from Houston isn't an option. They're anywhere from 4 to 20 light minutes away. Ares 4's MAV spent 11 months getting to Mars. It left before us and got here around the same time we did. As expected, Martinez landed it beautifully. It was one of the last things we did before piling into our MDV and heading to the surface. Ah, the good old days when I had a crew with me. I'm lucky. 3,200 kilometers isn't that bad. It could have been up to 10,000 kilometers away. And because I'm on the flattest part of Mars, the first 650 kilometers is nice, smooth terrain. Yeah, Sedalia Planitia. But the rest of it is nasty, rugged, crater-pocked hell. Obviously, I'll have to use a rover. And guess what? They weren't designed for massive overland journeys. This is going to be a research effort with a bunch of experimentation.
And as always,
I'll have to become my own little NASA, figuring out how to explore far from the hab. The good news is I have lots of time to figure it out. Almost 4 years. Some stuff is obvious. I'll need to use a rover. It'll take a long time, so I'll need to bring supplies. I'll need to recharge en route, and rovers don't have solar cells, so I'll need to steal some from the hab's solar farm. During the trip, I'll need to breathe, eat, and drink. Lucky for me, the tech specs for everything are right here in the computer. I'll need to trick out a rover. Basically, it'll have to be a mobile hab. I'll pick Rover 2 as my target. We have a certain bond after I spent 2 days in it during the great hydrogen scare of Sol 37. There's too much shit to think about all at once, so for now, I'll just think about power. Our mission had a 10-kilometer operational radius. Knowing we wouldn't take straight-line paths, NASA designed the rovers to go 35 kilometers on a full charge. That presumes flat, reasonable terrain. Each rover has a 9,000 watt-hour battery. Step 1 is to loot Rover 1's battery and install it in Rover 2. Ta-da! I just doubled my full charge range. There's just one complication. Heating. Part of the battery power goes to heating the rover. Mars is really cold. Normally, we were expected to do all EVAs in under 5 hours, but I'll be living in it 24 and a half hours a day. According to the specs, the heating equipment soaks up 400 watts. Keeping it on would eat up 9,800 watt-hours per day. Over half my power supply every day. But I do have a free source of heat. Me. A couple million years of evolution gave me warm-blooded technology. I can just turn off the heater and wear layers. The rover has good insulation, too. It'll have to be enough. I need every bit of power. According to my boring math, Moving the rover eats 200.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining me. Yeah, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll do some more work tomorrow. As always, if you have questions, comments, or requests for exercises, please leave it in the comment section below. Take care.